Okay, so I'm Sissel Olander from the Royal Danish Academy of Design, School of Design, and I'm going to present something from a current research project on libraries in Copenhagen. I will say a little bit, I'm going to play a little film for you, and I want to suggest that this film, which is also about the project that we are doing, is a kind of an empathy thing. It could work as an empathy thing. But I'll just say a little bit about the context of this research project. I hope everybody can hear me. I feel there's a lot of background noise, but I'll try to speak up. Okay, this project is taking place in a neighborhood in Copenhagen, on the outskirts of Copenhagen, called Tingbjerg. Sorry, which is I guess you could say a kind of a deprived neighborhood. It's a very international neighborhood, but it's one big neighborhood that is a social housing project. And there's a small library, the smallest library in Copenhagen, actually. And from the Royal Danish Academy, the School of Design, the CODES Research Center is working with this library and with Copenhagen Libraries to explore the future of the physical space of the library. Tingbjerg, Tingbjerg is it's a very international neighborhood. It has a lot of immigrants, a high unemployment rate, and relative poverty, and it's a lot actually in the news in Denmark for bad things, for crime things, gang-related things. So it's a neighborhood with quite a bad reputation. And then in this particular project, I'm out there researching with these citizens and with the people who run the library, and also with some of the students from the co-design master program, to explore other ways of creating a sort of meeting place in the library, in the physical space of the library. And one reason that we are out in Tingbjerg is because this, I don't know if you can see it, but this is actually a new library that is being built at the moment in Tingbjerg. And it's going to be opened by the end of the year. And so we are waiting to move this small library over to this much bigger library in Tingbjerg. And I don't think you can see it so well, but if you look, this is the rendering from the architect on the future of the library. And if you look closely, you can see the people, the renderings of the people who occupy the library. They are very white. They're very middle class, well-dressed citizens, and this image of citizens, or this role of citizens, is very much also what the Copenhagen libraries are trying to, in their strategy. They are working towards new citizen roles and new citizens engagements, and it's very much about optimizing yourself, optimizing your skill to be creative, to become a better citizen, so that you can be competitive and so Denmark can compete in the global marketplace almost. And in the Copenhagen libraries, you have sort of one strategy which has to do with the digitalization, that the citizen is very remote. It's a very remote citizen that can take care of herself. And then a very present citizen who's like a project person who can create all sorts of great things and projects and is very capable and able. But these images of citizens in Tingbjerg, the people that I meet there, they are much more, they don't look like this, and they don't talk like this, they don't walk like this. So you could say that in this project we are trying to explore other modes of citizenship, other ways of stepping forward as a citizen. So that's sort of the context. And we have focused on making, I don't know how it is in the UK, but in Denmark at least, maker spaces and fab labs is very much something that libraries are trying to pursue, a strategy of hosting these makerspaces and fab labs. But it's also, in Denmark at least, it's very much from this idea that you can go into a makerspace and then you can improve your skill or become better at something. And it's often also technical gear where you need some kind of skills to engage in it. And it's a little bit a Silicon Valley idea of makerspaces, at least in the libraries in Denmark. So instead we try to think of making as, it's not completely design maybe, but I mean, making is not necessarily design perhaps, but in design there's always some kind of making going on, you could say. So we're trying to explore a more everyday kind of making, which is more like using the available materials, upcycling, recycling, and it's easy accessible and it can be shared, both the making, the activity of making, but also the knowing of the making, so to speak. So this is what we have tried to do. We have sort of set up camp below this small library in this social housing project and tried to invite different people in. And as I said, it's a very international neighborhood, and already there are different communities of making, of knitting, of cooking together, doing different making activities together in this area. But it's quite, there's a group for seniors, there's a fathers club for men, there's a group for Middle Eastern immigrants, a group for people from Nigeria. So it's very segregated, and we want to try to make a platform where we can mix things much more, also cross-generational. So this is what we have worked on. And in terms of the empathy thing, I think this kind of making is always making together. It's not like an individual activity. That's at least not how we work with it or think about it. So if I think of your game, it's also, of course, it's not an individual activity, but it's not so much, if I should relate it to your game, about creating empathy in individuals as such. It's more a thing, I would say, a thing to converge around. And yes, so it's very much the collective of making, and also the effect of it. It's also rather distributed, I would say. So we talk about it as placemaking, and that's the place we call it Skaberværelset. That's just the name of this particular place in Tingbjerg. Yeah, it's a bit dark, you can't really see it here, but you're looking from inside and out. And now I come to the empathy thing, because you could say that this Skaberværelset you could think of it as a thing in the Latourian sense of the word, but is it a tool also? We could ask, is it an empathy tool? And I would say one of the ways that we work is by trying to create images or stories from a place like this as a kind of representations of this. And make them work as a tool to open this debate. So now I'm going to show you a film, it's only 3 minutes, that just shows a little bit from these activities in Skaberværelset. And the film is both a tool, I think, for creating some kind of empathy among the people who are part of this Skaberværelset, among the people who come in and do stuff together. Because when we showed a film like this to them, they suddenly see much more of the richness of what they're doing, I think. So that's one way that this small film, which is really nothing, it's just a small film of everyday clips, makes a difference. But then also to take it up to the politicians and the decision makers in the Copenhagen libraries, that we have done that with this film and other films, that suddenly they see a depth or richness in the way that people come together in the library, which is really hard to read from strategy papers. It's really hard to read from the renderings of the architects as well. So I would love to discuss this as a way of working, but let me just show you the film.
Can I ask you a question? So are you thinking, I love that the library becomes a makerspace. We've been doing a project in prison that has some similarities, but do you think proximity,
Yes.
is that what you're saying, that empathy comes from proximity?
Exactly, yes. I didn't say that, but
That's
was
what you
actually
mean,
what
yeah.
I wanted to say, yes. I think that the proximity and or the nearness or the closeness of, and I think the richness of these stories, they evoke something quite different than, for instance, those renderings that you saw on the strategic papers that the librarians are working right now, trying to imagine what these citizens could be or the library could be.
I think it's one of the characteristics, but
Yes.
I won't go on, but I think that in the groups we have to look at what else, because if you put people together who had no connection or no sort of soul to be connected, then how would they have those conversations? So that's what I'm interested in. What are the other ingredients?
Yes, and but this connection, I mean, it wasn't necessarily there when we arrived, so we started by making together, and then these connections grew, and then we made a film about it and a story about it, and I mean, of course, many different small films and images, we send them out in the system, so to speak, and I think that opens up a new conversation on libraries, makerspaces, and what it is to be a citizen in a private neighborhood.
Thank you, that's really interesting.